Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm John Barban. With me is Geoff Dover, and let's talk football.
All right, we're talking about the recent controversial lawsuit. That's why Wisconsin suing Miami for tampering with the football transfer. What are your thoughts on this?
A lot of layers here, a lot of interested parties.
It's like a
So,
parfait.
yeah, well, so Wisconsin, man, where do we even start? So I think the story broke. Ross Dellinger broke it on yahoo.com. So I'm gonna pull up his article, but there's lots of people have already talked about it to some
Yeah.
degree. And as the story goes, there is a player, Xavier Lucas, on Wisconsin. I think he's already done 1 year, so I guess he's going into his sophomore year.
Yep.
Left Wisconsin to go and to enroll in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Asked Wisconsin to put him in the transfer portal. They chose not to, or they refused that. So I guess that's something a player has to request, and the school has to agree to it. And They didn't agree to it. He'd already signed an NIL deal through the Wisconsin Collective. There's a lot of layers to this.
Yeah,
but
like
he
a
left
2 to 3 year deal.
I think I think it was 2, so it wasn't over yet. He left anyways, enrolled in Miami, and apparently some part of this article suggests the way that he did that was, you could say, a way to circumvent the transfer portal rules and just kind of bail anyways.
Yeah. So it's the first lawsuit of its kind.
Yes.
That where NIL is they've always said it's not pay for play and it's not, but they're not employees and stuff. But this lawsuit is the first one of its kind that makes it feel like that, right? Wisconsin is saying he signed a 2-year deal essentially to play, or for us to use his name, image, and likeness here at Wisconsin. And this person broke that deal and signed with Miami. And so that's why it's sort of a landmark thing right now, because this is the first time that it really, everyone's been acting like it's pay for play, but this is the first time legally now it's being challenged, like for that reason, essentially, because the lawsuit states Miami committed tortious interference by knowingly compelling a player to break the terms of the deal with Wisconsin.
Right.
So,
and that's taking all responsibility away from him. Oh, Miami convinced him to do it. Well, this kid signed something, and then he just backed out of the thing he signed.
Well, that was interesting because in the article I read, they reached out to Lucas, or like his lawyer, and they're like, do you have any comment? And the lawyer just said, the lawsuit is between the University of Wisconsin and Miami. Like, the player's not named in it, so no comment, because they're not involved in this legal process now, it seems like. So,
which I don't get that at all. Like, this seems to be a recurring theme that players don't care if they've signed something. They just, whatever. Like, that doesn't mean anything. Now somewhere I've seen it reported, I can't remember who, that Wisconsin had not yet paid out any of that deal. So in Lucas's mind with his team, I guess, they could say, well, you haven't paid me anything, so it hadn't really happened yet. But that's not how that works.
No, I mean, I'm not familiar with the NIL, like when they get the money, when they don't, how it's assured to them, like they paid every 2 weeks, so they given lump sums. So like, I have no idea how that stuff works. But what's clear here is that, and this would be super hard. We've talked about this before, for like an 18-year-old, to say like, you're getting this much money. And then someone from Miami, his agent, a representative of the NIL from Miami, is going to say, if you come here, you'll get this much. And so why, and they said, don't worry about, like, you can, or someone gave him the idea he can, and he can, like, he enrolled in Miami, and then now he's going there. Right. So so on one hand, it's disappointing to see someone like agree to a thing and then renege on that deal, which sucks. But then on another hand, I can see why an 18-year-old would do that, because it's more money, so but it's disappointing. If you're a Wisconsin fan, this sucks, because it's supposedly a good player, good enough player that Miami really wanted them, and it's one less DB that you're going to have this year. And it's for, and you did everything right. Wisconsin like recruited them, got them signed to a good deal, and then lost it. So
now there's the added complication that the House settlement, this is all happening as the House settlement with revenue sharing becoming legal is in the middle of all of this. So it says Wisconsin and Lucas struck a 2-year revenue share agreement that, like all of them, was set to begin July 1st, the first date the school can begin directly compensating athletes. Because of the agreement that Lucas signed, Wisconsin refused to enter Lucas's name into the transfer portal as he requested. So he signed a 2-year deal, and then he's like, "Yeah, I want out of the deal." It's like, "Yeah, but you just signed it. Like, you can't."
Yeah.
For the
And it's
rest of your
revenue sharing. It was the
yes,
revenue sharing part,
and for the
right?
rest
So
of your life, you can't just sign things and say, "Oh, I didn't mean to." Like, once you signed it, no matter how, like, you signed it. Like, then what's the point of any legal document if afterwards just say, no, it's not going to bother.
and that's the part that I really like. I support Wisconsin with this because the idea of like this can't keep happening, I agree with, right? Because what it's already been described as the Wild West, but could you imagine like if this was just never checked, like or allowed to happen, it'd be terrible, right? You'd sign people for 2-year deals and you're like, okay, we're set, and then they could still leave at any time. So like that'd be crazy for the roster. So
All right. So we got to kind of walk through the timeline here. So Lucas was a freshman last season. He withdrew from classes and enrolled academically at Miami in January.
yeah.
A move to skirt NCAA rules requiring athletes to enter the portal to communicate with other schools. Lucas enrolled for the fall 2025 semester, but was reclassified to spring 2025. So it's still, I think this case might be forcing everyone to iron all of this mess out because he asks Wisconsin to put his name in the portal. Wisconsin refuses because he signed a 2-year deal. So he just leaves Wisconsin and enrolls in Miami, which
I've never heard of before. Like, because normally there's like letter of intent. You have to let me out of the letter of intent. You have to, like all that stuff.
In the end, this bullshit that there's athletes and students. So he's trying to get out of this, what seems to be a professional contract to play for the team of Wisconsin
for money,
which has nothing to do with being enrolled as a student. It's you're playing on a team for money. And then he's trying to circumvent those rules by, but I'm a student at Miami.
Yeah.
So now all of that shit doesn't matter because I'm a student over there. So this case may be precedent setting, forcing the schools and forcing all schools to face the fact that he's not a student. He's just a guy playing for a team that the athletic department funds.
Yeah. And that's exactly what the revenue sharing, like that, it has to, this has to, now, one of my first thoughts about this is that I can't believe this hasn't happened before, meaning that like, how many players have played somewhere, talked to another school, went somewhere else for more money? Like it's got to be in the hundreds. That's part of the reason why I'm wearing the Kansas State shirt, because I know people talked to Avery Johnson when he was at Kansas State and then like to go somewhere else. I think Tennessee did, and so that to me is awfully similar or the same as sort of like what's happening here.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a little surprised. That's why the lawsuit is catching everyone off guard, because it's a little surprising. Because like my thing is like, this has for sure happened before.
Yeah.
Why
is this one any different?
Times,
yeah.
Hundreds of times.
Right.
And so, but Wisconsin is putting their hand up saying like, we're going to be the ones to be like, we got to put a stop to this. And I agree with them because as a fan, if we could limit the amount of like the complete turnover my team has every year, that would be nice.
Yep.
So
moving on in the article, we do have to cover this other point.
Yep.
Lucas's attorney told Yahoo Sports in January that he planned to file an antitrust lawsuit against Wisconsin if Lucas was unable to complete his move to Miami. I think since they haven't done that. He accused Wisconsin of blatantly violating NCAA rules by not inserting Lucas's name into the portal as he requested.
Right.
And questioned the legality of the NCAA's transfer portal at all.
Yeah. Right. And so that part to me, that actually made more sense to me than initially than the Wisconsin lawsuit, because so again, he's a player at Wisconsin. Someone from Miami, his agent, is telling him, if you go to Miami, you'll make more money. So the process is go to the portal, then they're going to pick you up and you're going to make your more money. So when Wisconsin said, no, you can't go to the portal, that's what spurred the idea of the lawsuits. Like, you can't do that. You're stopping me from being able to go to make my money, and you're not allowed to do that because we're paid now. So
Right. But you
that part
signed a contract. That's how
yeah,
contracts work. Like antitrust law, first of all, antitrust law is complete bullshit. It gives the
yes,
government the right to consider something anti-competitive for any reason at any time in any industry. So
that's
it just doesn't really,
fraud.
I
Yeah,
mean, that's a whole different story. Antitrust is just it's a terrible, terrible law. But they're trying to use it to say, well, I don't like that deal anymore, so I want a
yeah,
different deal. But
yeah,
but there's also the entire, like, the legal system revolves around contracts, like contract
yes,
law. If you
yeah.
sign a contract, you've agreed.
Not just the legal system, like
So
employees,
why doesn't
companies,
Brock
every
Purdy try to sue the NFL for signing a deal, his rookie deal for 900 grand, and he was in the goddamn Super Bowl?
yeah, yeah,
How come he can't say use antitrust law? Like, it's just such bullshit. Like, this concept is such bullshit here.
yeah,
So this idea that I signed a deal, but I don't like it anymore, so I'm going to
yeah,
sue my way out of that deal, or I'm going to say I'm a student over there now. It's
yeah.
like, there's all of these loose ends that have not been tied up. This just shows you how much of a clusterfuck this is, and how much the NCAA has fumbled their way to this point, and how everyone involved, conferences, the NCAA, the schools, have kicked the can down the road, and they put themselves in this position to have to undo this complete disaster that they're in the middle of right now.
I'm shocked he could enroll at Miami. I remember, like, when someone transfers or when someone requests to transfer and stuff, there's paperwork that has to be cleared through, and I'm surprised that, like, that either didn't happen, they don't have to anymore. Like, you could, it was, I can't believe he could just leave without being in the transfer portal or being released from his letter of intent or whatever, and it was just be able to enroll at another place. Like, that's
But
crazy.
what's okay? That's a good point. But what's the consequence? Let's say you and I go to Wisconsin as students, and then we just don't show up to class one day. They don't have any right to force us to stay.
No, true, but, like, that's what's different with the athletes because they have, like, a letter of intent. There is, like, an
No, no, no,
agreement.
no, no. Hang on. What forces them to stay? What are they? The school going to sue the kid?
No, no, you're right. There's nothing forcing you to stay, but, like, let's say then we would show up to we would show up to Miami and be like, okay, now enroll me, like, 'cause I just left there, and then something has to be processed at Miami to allow me to be a student because you can't be a student at two places at once because that's like fraud. So I can't be enrolled at, like, in a class at Wisconsin and enrolled in a class at Miami at, like, the same time because the state universities get money from the government, like, per
Oh,
student, like,
per enroll. But
enrollment and stuff. So you can't be enrolled like full-time student at two different places. So there is like a check that has to happen that where you like and
okay, but
you
tell me this. Tell me this. Can you not just drop out of school anytime you want?
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
then, so he just drops out of Wisconsin saying, "Yeah, I'm just not a student here anymore.
Right.
Just take me off
If
the
he was a
list."
regular student, you could absolutely do that, but he's not. Like, he was there's the athlete stuff
And
is
that's the point.
complicated thing.
That's where this is showing there's no such thing as a student athlete.
Right. But I mean, there used to be, like, they would say it would be like going through the NCAA clearinghouse or something. Like,
Mhm.
there's a way that you had to be approved in order to be enrolled. And if it didn't happen, then you just sat there at the school and you couldn't do anything. So so I agree with you. This needs to be checked and it's
Oh yeah.
complete bullshit and stuff. But, like, I just can't believe administratively they were able to enroll him, like, with this situation.
Well, he's
So,
right now he's having his cake and eating it too because of how much of a mess this is. So
yeah.
he's leveraging the fact that he can make all this money as an athlete,
Yep.
and when he doesn't like it, he's like, "Well, no, 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 I'm a student."
Yeah. Now, so two things I'll say about this too is that this is still like how coaches can go, right? So, like, a coach at Wisconsin could be like the defensive line coach or something like that. Could have left, like, could have signed a 3-year deal and then could have left, like, immediately gone to Miami, signed a more deal, right? Like, and so that's always one thing people say is that, well, the coaches can do it. Like, why can't the
Mhm.
players do it? And the reason is because like, as you just said, like, they're supposed to be athletes or then students, and, like,
Well, a coach is just an
enrolled and
employee of the
stuff.
school. They're not hiding that.
Right. So that's right. So the athlete thing really has to switch to the
Yeah.
employee part because
Yeah.
then it
Yeah.
would be like that. Um,
So
yeah,
the
no,
athletes
it's
can straddle that line. When they want
yes.
to, they can
The-
sign as if they were an employee, the same as a coach, and make all the money.
Mhm.
And when they don't like that anymore, they're like, "Well, whatever. I don't know about that. I'm a student at Miami now. I'm not a student
Mhm.
here, so I don't know what you're talking about." Whereas a coach can't say, "I'm a student at Miami." Like, a coach is a
Yeah.
contractual employee of
Yes.
the school, And if he breaches that contract, he doesn't get that money.
Mhm.
Or if he wants to leave, the school can buy him out. Like, but it's not. He doesn't have this other lane where he can just redefine himself as something else, like an athlete. The student athlete can choose to function in the rules of a student, or now function in the rules of this paid to play athlete
Exactly.
thing that's just an employee.
Exactly.
Now, hang on. This is where it gets even more confusing because NIL is not really an employment contract. It's this other thing that I didn't know this. I was reading the article about the Missouri NIL. There's an article that I guess a journalist, I should be referencing the journalist, got a Freedom of Information request approved and has the exact numbers of how much money Missouri spent. And it was like 31 million. And that's just, I mean, I don't want to minimize Mizzou, but that's just Missouri. Like, then what's Ohio State spending if Missouri spent 31 million? Unless Missouri was just really pushing it here.
Yeah, it was Nick Schultz in the part of USA Today Sports, I think.
Well, so the NIL invoices the school. The school pays the NIL with, I guess, booster money. Then the NIL signs these athletes to these completely bullshit deals. Like, do you think some player on Missouri's name, image, or likeness is worth a penny to anyone?
Yeah, we've talked about this before. I can come up with cases. One of the first NIL things I ever heard was it was like the QB, a defensive lineman, a linebacker, and a running back or something for Florida State. And there was a local bar in Tallahassee that paid them all like $3,000 each or something to come in on a Tuesday to do like the autographs. And it was a Tuesday would normally be dead at this place.
Right.
And the place was jammed and the bar made a lot of money. And and that was like, that to me was like that's what I envisioned. Like, that to me was like, yes, that people want to come in, get the QB's autograph. Yep. It's worth about this one-time thing.
And that's true. That would be true NIL because the business can track return on investment.
Yes, exactly.
We spent $3,000 for these guys to be here. We had a $15,000 revenue day.
Exactly.
Great. Not this Lenore Sellers is 3.7 million. Do you think anyone could pick Lenore Sellers out of a group of 100 people?
You had a great example of that in your other business where you were getting like someone wanted to endorse something.
So here's an example of how nonsensical this NIL stuff is. I worked at a company where we were trying to sign a celebrity to endorse one of our products. I'll leave all names out of it, or at least our product name. But we were in the mix. Now, this is a while ago, but we were in the mix when Britney Spears was really popular. And this was a product for women. And our publicist was trying to get it such that she had it with her at an event or some way where it was like kind of like it would fall out of her purse, or she'd be in not just a commercial, but like she would have this thing with her at various
like
public
people
events.
do now, like on Instagram and stuff, where
Before
they're like
all of that existed.
Yeah, like eating a chicken sandwich from KFC, like that, where they paid to have
no matter how old you are, you know who Britney Spears is. She's like world famous.
Yeah,
her rate at the time, and this was before her crash, she was $4 or $5 million for a few spots. Someone as big as her.
Yeah.
Now we ended up with Carmen Electra, who was also big at the time,
which is awesome. I still think that's a great story.
But she was still cost millions and millions of dollars. Carson Beck versus Britney Spears, are you kidding me? No one knows who these guys are.
No, I think that the amount of people who know who Carmen Electra is now is still higher than
every player in college by a mile.
I was going to say than like anyone, Lenore Sellers, like it's not even close, right?
The only guys who had real NIL were Shadur Sanders, Travis Hunter, and maybe a couple other guys who were recognizable across the country.
Yeah.
Travis Hunter had NerdWallet, he had United Airlines, he had Adidas. Yeah. He actually contributed to the collective.
Yeah.
He gave his money back.
Yeah,
so that's
crazy.
True NIL. Everything else is just pay for play bullshit. So
the other thing I'll say too, we talked about this before, in which I'm all for athletes should get more money than they're getting now. Like like college football is such a multi-billion-dollar industry. Yeah. And it was really a crime that like none of the athletes got anything for forever. And, which is wrong. Now, saying that, I'm worried for some of these kids. Like, so for example, for this guy, Xavier Lucas, he's learning the contract. You can sign something, doesn't mean anything, like just chase the money, and this is a lot of money. Like, this is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, which most likely he's never going to make again. Like, because most of them
That's a
do
good
not
point.
go to the NFL, right? So there are hundreds of college athletes that are going to kill it now, and then like have to get like a regular job at like 50,000 a year or something like
Mhm.
that. And it's so one of the things that's a real challenge in the NFL is mental health afterwards and what the players are like afterwards. And that's and how much they struggle financially. And that's after making millions of dollars, like potentially, usually a lot more than you would make in college, maybe not now.
Mhm.
But now that pool of like struggling athlete is going to get significantly bigger because there was never,
Mhm.
the NFL is not actually that big in terms of the number of players in it compared to college. There's way more players.
Right.
So there's going to be way more people like 3-4 years out of college, like, trying to put it together. Like they've blown through all the money
Yep.
and trying to put it together in a 50K a year job. Like that is, oh man, it's going to be tough. Like this,
And they're
yeah,
getting bullshit degrees. It's not, you're telling me
yeah,
you can bounce from school to school and like the classes you take matter to
yeah.
whatever kind of degree you're cobbling together.
That was,
It's not like you're an engineer and you're going from one school to another and you actually end up with a coherent engineering degree. Like these guys are just taking nonsensical classes. Or okay, I don't want to say all of them, but
no,
the ones that are
a
chasing the
lot of them.
money around, the degree is,
Yeah.
let's just get rid of that, like that nonsense. And that all they are guys who play for a team that happens to wear the Wisconsin logo or the Kansas State or Tennessee or whatever.
Yeah.
And if they want to go to class, fine, but it has nothing to do with actually going to class.
Yeah. That's what was so refreshing. I don't know if you heard, it was one of the cover three, the summer school ones on Duke. And they were talking like some of the players and like, so,
Mm,
who left, who's come in. And then they were talking about this one guy, I can't remember his name, but he was sort of like, this is like a refreshing story. And they're like, oh, like, what do you mean? And he's like, he prioritized the student part. So this
yeah.
kid apparently was a 4-star recruit, but he's like really, really smart. And so he had a lot of offers to go places and he chose to go to Harvard because that's where he wanted his undergrad degree from. So he had
Yeah.
it all planned out. He was doing a 3-year degree from Harvard, then he was going to go to Stanford for his master's and play football. Like that was the thing. And then so he graduated from Harvard, then he ended up doing his grad. He's going to Duke now, which is
Yeah.
just a, really good research school and stuff. And I'm sure he's going to be doing a great project and working with great people. But it was sort of like, that was sort of like, oh, that sounds so nice. Like
Yeah, it's
I'm so
rare.
happy. It's extremely rare, but I'm
Yeah.
so happy for him. Like what a great time to be a brilliant football player, to be able to go play at Harvard, probably make some money, make a good chunk of money going to
Hmm.
grad school at Duke, like that. He'll be the highest paid grad student, like by far, like,
Oh
and
yeah, of course.
so it's like, oh, and and
Oh,
playing football, like good for him. I'm super excited. I got to figure out who that kid's name is. That's
and on
gonna.
the topic of grad students, apparently there's not even a portal window for them. You can kind of talk to them whenever. So
Mhm.
the whole point of this thing being a tampering lawsuit, because they talked to this kid Lucas outside of the portal windows.
Mm.
You apparently with grad students, there's no real window. You can sort of talk to them anytime, and
Yeah, because
they
the
don't.
graduation rate is so low
Yeah,
that it doesn't actually
it's
affect that
probably
many
like
players.
right. But anyways, it's just the rules. Oh, and then another 30-day portal window automatically arrives when a coach quits or leaves.
Yeah,
So there's
that's
two
crazy.
actual official portal windows. Then there's this post spring thing where it kind of persists. That's not technically a window.
Yeah.
Then grad students it doesn't really apply to. And then if a coach leaves, there's another portal. So it's like, oh, don't tamper unless you're within the portal window tampering windows,
Yeah.
whatever. So, but anyways,
No, the number of portal windows and times of the year, that's one of the key things that has
stupid.
to be fixed. It
Yeah.
has to be fixed. It doesn't align with the academic year, but like I don't think it should necessarily. And then the contract
Well, I
they're
think signing a
that
contract should negate. It doesn't matter. Okay, so if your contract is for 2 years, it doesn't matter if there's portal windows within there.
yes.
The school you signed with should have the sole right to choose to let you out of the contract, thus letting you into the portal, which is what's at issue here. I think that's the bigger issue, not this tampering bullshit.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I agree. And to put something in there almost like, if you sign a contract, if you leave, there has to be a penalty. Or I'd even put something like that, like you can't leave until we get someone else to replace the position. Or I don't know. There has to be something there where you can't, this has to stop.
There's so many messy pieces to this that this
Yes.
lawsuit potentially could straighten out. So I guess cycling back to the
Hopefully.
topic. Yeah. The revenue share agreement, a Big Ten issued template form, binds Lucas and all players who sign it to that specific school and grants the school a player's non-exclusive rights to use and market their name, image, and likeness. So this is how they're getting around the bullshit of it all. So this revenue share is trying to suggest that the school is paying for the NIL rights of the kid, as if anyone knows who this guy is or recognizes him or it matters. But that's how they're getting around it.
Yeah.
So that's how they're getting around calling him an employee. They're saying, "Oh no, we're paying for his name, image, and likeness rights." Yeah. But the agreement prohibits the player's rights to be used by any other school, but permits him or her to sign outside marketing agreements. So another school can't do the bullshit thing. But if you actually are marketable, you can go sign a deal with Dr. Pepper or something like that, which is like, they're just admitting it's pay for play, but they're circumventing it. I don't know, it's nonsense. But anyway, so moving on. Lucas also signed an NIL agreement with the collective to compensate him until the university could legally, within settlement terms, compensate him with the revenue share starting in July. So we're in this weird window where this is all happening, and he has this odd NIL agreement that just gets him through to July 1st when the revenue share kicks in. So maybe this timing is where his legal team is like, you know what, revenue share hadn't happened yet. This deal isn't till July 1st anyways. You could just back out of that NIL thing and let's get the hell out of here and go to Miami. So that also could be what's going on here, and that all of this is moot as of July 1st.
Yep. No, maybe. You're right, though. I think the lawsuit is going to. There's a reason why it's a landmark lawsuit.
Yeah.
I think and something's going to change. Something has to change. I want something to change where this can't happen like this again. So you know, the last thing I'll say about this is that this is the most I've ever thought about Xavier Lucas. I've never. I was, you know, Miami's playing Notre Dame in the first game of the season in the fall, and I'm going to be looking for this guy. I'll tell you that. Like I'm like, this is the guy. This is what all the hubbub's about, you know. And so like if he gets burned by a pass, if he gets, you know, like a penalty or something, they'll be like, how much did that cost? Like this is going to put a spotlight on him, whether he likes it or not. So
yeah. NCAA rules do not prevent a student athlete from unenrolling from an institution, enrolling at a new institution, and competing immediately.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So this thing is just, you can just see how nothing adds up here. Like you've got a portal, so you can talk to the kid in the portal, but if the kid signs a deal, does that negate the portal? There's no verbiage about that. Yeah. And then he asks Wisconsin to allow him in the portal, but Wisconsin refuses.
I've never heard of a school refusing to put someone in the portal. Like I've never heard of that.
Wouldn't that just be par for the course if you've already signed a deal?
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know. There's players that have been in the portal and then end up just staying with their team. Like that's happened. So I've never heard of a school not agreeing to put someone in the portal. I've never heard of that. So
again, this lawsuit is about the impermissible contact that Miami had with Lucas, poaching him away from Wisconsin with a better deal. What if Lucas signed a deal with Wisconsin?
Yes.
Why is he talking to anybody? Does his legal counsel or his agent not say, "Oh, you know, you can't, like, we're in violation if you're talking to somebody"? It's not like
that's for sure not part of, like, people talk to everyone all the time. That's how Riley Leonard was at Duke and was going to go to Notre Dame and knew he was everyone knew he was going, and it's because they for sure talked to him when he was at Duke.
But this is like in the NFL, agents can't just shop their player around during the season. There's times when you can talk and there's times when you can't. Like that is,
and you have to honor your contract. And if you don't, there's penalties. And so that's what we need.
Is this guy a real agent or is he just a pretend? Like, what do they do? Your reputation is going to follow you around. If this guy thinks he's going to represent anybody else, people are like, oh yeah, that guy he doesn't follow any rules. He'll let his clients talk whenever.
I think that if I'm that agent, I'm going to be like, I'm going to get you the most money. I don't care about the rules. We're going to switch you to whatever school, and I'm going to make sure
I
you
mean,
get
maybe
yours.
he knows that none of this shit's enforceable anyways, so we're just going to go around getting as much money as we can after
No,
July 1st. Let's see what happens. They probably had no idea this would be the precedent-setting potentially case.
I can guarantee you that the agent for Xavier Lucas, a freshman defensive back for Wisconsin going into his sophomore year, absolutely did not think this was going to be national news when he's like, hey, why don't you just go to Miami for a bit more money? For sure did not
Yeah,
think that.
yeah. That
Absolutely
wasn't
did
on
not
his
think
list
that.
of things that was going to happen.
Nope.
And then Saturday versus Sunday's talking about him.
Just
Right here,
hammering
baby.
him, punching him right in the face.
Well, geez. Okay, so I don't even know where to go. So this is just going to be really interesting. This was inevitably coming. We don't know if it was going to be this, but somewhere along the line, this was going to have to happen.
Absolutely.
It's like this is
because
like we've said, there's so many things that don't add up here.
Yeah, and the worst part is that if you're a Wisconsin fan, you thought you had a decent defensive back. You thought that he'd signed a 2-year contract, was going to be at least here for a bit in the era where people are leaving every semester, and you get a whole turnover in your team. You're like, this guy we've got for 2 years, and you don't, which is like disappointing.
This makes me think there shouldn't even be such thing as portal windows. You sign a deal, you're on that team, just like the NFL.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess there should be some kind of single window, but your contract supersedes that. You can't just in the middle of a contract, there's a window open, I'm leaving. Like you can't. That can't be a thing that keeps happening.
No, the key thing, which you've mentioned a couple times, is the contract. Like we come from a time where, like, if you signed a contract, you signed a contract, but apparently it's not that, and so that needs to be fixed.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, this is obviously a dynamic situation that we have no idea where this is heading, but is this going to take years to play out?
I don't know.
Will he even be in school when this is
figured
out?
Yeah, I'm worried that you're right, that it's like once July 1st comes, that's going to change enough stuff that I don't know, that might mess it up, but it's crazy. It does, in general, legal stuff isn't solved super quick. So I'd be surprised if it's solved anytime soon.
Especially one that seems to be as messy as this one with 2 major institutions involved.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's where we're at with it so far. It's like you said, Xavier Lucas all of a sudden is somebody. Now his NIL might matter. Like people might know who the hell this guy is now.
But more people know who he is now than in March.
I know who he is now. I didn't know who he was before.
Me neither.
So.
You better have a good game against Notre Dame.
That's right. And I haven't had much opportunity to wear a Wisconsin shirt because they've been so bad. We haven't talked much about them. So it's funny. Maybe it's depressing. This is the first time they get the shirt for of all things, a lawsuit.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. All right. Well, that's a good place to leave this one. But yes, we will be watching this with interest. And if something else happens, we'll comment on it. Where it gets to.
Let us know in the comments what you thought. If you're a Wisconsin fan, if you're a Miami fan, are you happy you got this guy? Are you happy this made the news? I don't know. As a fan, I'd be pissed if I thought we had someone under contract and then they leave. So
are you hoping for a Wisconsin Miami bowl game now?
Oh, that's great.
A school suing another school and they face each other in a bowl game.
The tortious interference bowl or whatever the name of the thing.
Right. All right. Well, let's leave it there. So for Geoff Dover, I'm John Barban, and that's your Saturday versus Sunday podcast.